I think we're recording. Morning, everybody. It's Saturday morning. Going out for a little ride. Might even have a surprise in store. Don't know. Only a couple things I wanted to talk about. And it's sort of political. So you can fast forward if you don't want to hear it. But anyway, the CEO being murdered. I've been looking at a trend lately, and I think at this point I don't want to hear Democrats say anything more about gun control. You know, they're always talking about gun control and keeping guns out of the hand of this, and gun crime this, and death that, and yet it was Democrats who tried to kill President Trump twice by shooting at him. You got Democrats like Hunter Biden being pardoned on 3 felony illegal gun charges. Things that people go to jail for, not because he's Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden didn't go to jail. People who aren't Hunter Biden have gone to jail and will continue to go to jail. And now you look at all the liberals literally celebrating with glee you know, the CEO being shot. Apparently, liberals don't care about gun control anymore because they seem to be doing an awful lot of shooting. And that doesn't even get into the whole aspect of crime in America. When you look at most homicides in the U.S. that are not, you know, suicides, actual homicides, suicides are literally 2/3. 2 out of every 3 so-called gun deaths are self-inflicted suicide. Someone just wanted to off themselves. So when you look at actual homicides, most of it's gang and drug, and the vast majority of it is committed by one, let's just say, racial demographic. Let's call it what it is. And we know that even though Trump made some strides in that demographic this election, it's still overwhelmingly, nationally, Democrats. So between high-profile shootings like presidential assassinations and Hunter Biden, and now shooting this United Healthcare CEO, most gun homicides, most gun deaths in that area are Democrats. I don't think we need to ban guns. I think we need to ban Democrats from having guns. If you really want to impact lives, that's where most of it comes from, is from the left. Or people that are part of the demographic that overwhelmingly votes left, Democrat. That's not opinion, that's not even rhetoric, that's just, I mean, look at the stats. Who's doing the majority of the shooting? Who do they tend to vote for? And now you got these high-profile ones. And the thing about this CEO thing is, I don't know the guy. I understand that United Healthcare are dicks to deal with. How do I know that? Because my wife and I have United Healthcare. And her doctor stopped carrying because he said, basically, paraphrasing, they were dicks to deal with. They nickel and dime everything. They deny stuff. And he's like, I'm just tired of it. I'm not dealing with it. I don't accept their insurance anymore. So she had to go find a new doctor. Now what she didn't do was go shoot somebody. And so she goes to another doctor, and then she's got to pay out-of-network costs, which means she has to pay the bill up front and then try to get reimbursed after the fact. But that's money out of her pocket rather than a $20 copay. And you just let them sort it out and fight it out behind the scenes. My wife had Lyme disease for years, causing health problems. United Healthcare wouldn't cover the testing or the treatment, even though it's a serious disease and if left untreated can cause organ failure and neurological damage and stuff. Like, it's a significant thing if you don't catch it early. And they didn't want to cover it. So I have dealt personally with this. But we didn't take up arms and go shoot somebody. And I just see all over social media the absolute glee and the joking and all this other stuff, and it's like, a couple things come to mind. One, what if the CEO was a black woman? Or what if the CEO was trans? Do you think the media would be covering, I mean, they're covering it as a murder and stuff, and they're not excusing it, but do you think it would take on a whole nother layer of depth and calls for swift action and all this other stuff if it was a black woman or trans, where they could spin it as a hate crime? But because it's a rich white guy, it's okay. I mean, it's still a murder. They're going to cover it that way, but when you look at how society is basically covering it, it's kind of crazy. And all the jokes and this and that, and when you question people, and you're like, yeah, but that guy was a scumbag, he deserved it. Okay, so whether he's a scumbag or not, let's just say he's a scumbag. George Floyd was a scumbag. You know what I mean? The same people that are celebrating this murder of a white guy were painting murals and marching and burning and looting and all this other stuff when George Floyd, a lifetime, you know, career criminal who threatened to knife a pregnant woman in the belly and did hard time and was a drug dealer, and then who was committing a more petty crime, but had you know, had just gotten over COVID, so his lungs were in a weakened state. He was also high as fuck on fentanyl. You know, the knee on the neck was not excusable, but a knee on most people's necks would not have resulted in that. George Floyd was on the ground with a knee in his neck because he's a big, somewhat muscular dude. He's a known criminal with a long rap sheet. He's resisting arrest, and yeah, the cops were too rough with him, but his actual cause of death was respiratory arrest because of his weakened condition and the fentanyl. Obviously, the knee on the neck didn't help things and was a catalyst for that, but George Floyd was a complete scumbag. He was a terrible human being. And yet, our city's burned and people are putting up statues and lauding him as a hero, the scumbag, the attempted baby murderer, the guy who's assaulted people and resisted arrest. He's getting paintings and murals, and he's the hero in this story. But then, when you switch to, you know, the white guy getting killed, well, now the murderer's the hero. And to me, whether you like the guy or not, there's a right way to do things. And just going and traveling to another state and getting your hands on a homemade silencer and going and just assassinating a guy is not the way to do it. And it does bother me that so many people are just fine with this. And, oh, we should shoot all the rich, and we should do... What are you talking about? Oh, Musk should be next. Trump should be next. We already tried to shoot Trump twice, Democrats. And that probably helped put him over the top and put him in office, so that didn't work all that well. Trump now has a positive approval rating for the first time. But I don't understand. I understand the glee if you want to see, hey, if this guy was a scumbag and denying claims, and if he's doing things that were illegal and shady. But there's a bigger discussion that has to be had around health insurance. Health insurance is not health care. Those are two very different businesses. They are intertwined because we painted ourselves into a corner by using health care or health insurance in a way that it was never meant to be used. Health insurance was for big stuff. You fall down and break your back. You get cancer. There's like all this kind of stuff. Big ticket items. Just like your home insurance. Your home insurance doesn't cover light bulbs and air filters for the AC unit and a leaky faucet and a loose doorknob and dish soap and all the day-to-day stuff it takes to run a house. The consumables, the daily wear and tear, the carpet from the dog. Home insurance doesn't cover that. Your car insurance doesn't cover, you know, it covers collision and liability. Maybe they'll cover some, you know, they'll throw in a perk of covering, you know, a big rock chip in the windshield. But they don't cover scratches in the paint, stains in the seat, oil changes, coolant, belt changes, periodic service, transmission fluid flush, brake pads, tires, putting gas in the tank, a light bulb going out, windshield wiper blades. Insurance is not meant to cover day-to-day incidentals. There's certain things that If you own a car, you just know, hey, I got to factor in and budget in periodic maintenance and tires and shit. There's day-to-day things you're going to have to shell out money. If you want insurance to cover those things, your $150 a month premium is going to be $800 a month. Insurance works, in the only way that it works, under the premise of you take in so much money for life insurance or homeowners insurance or car insurance, with the understanding that the vast majority of people aren't going to total their cars that year. A tree isn't going to fall on their house. It's not going to get washed away in a flood or blown away in a frickin' tornado. Most people won't have that. Most people's houses won't burn down. But if it does, you're covered. That is what insurance is for. That's how it was designed to work, and that's where it's actually pretty good. But we let ourselves get to a point where we just, oh, insurance has got to cover everything. I got a splinter. You go into the doctor and he sees you for 11 minutes and, you know, you got the sniffle, you have a cold or you have a sinus infection. Here's a prescription. You see someone, the nurse practitioner for 9 minutes, and they write you a digital prescription for amoxicillin. And you just pay your $20 copay, and you don't even care that the pricing is not competitive. You don't care about any of that stuff. You're just like, whatever. I don't even look at the bill when I go to the doctor. I mean, I probably should, but honestly, I put myself in this bucket like everybody else. I just give them my debit card. They charge me 20 bucks. I don't know if the bill is $90 behind the scenes or if it's $390. And frankly, I don't care because I don't have to pay it. And because of that, there's no competitive market forces pushing on the doctors to be competitive with their pricing, which has allowed pricing to get out of control to the point now where you can't afford to go to the doctor for a splinter without the damn insurance paying for it. And so we've created a mess for ourselves, partly through legislation and saying, oh, you got to cover this, got to cover that. If you didn't have, if you just went to the doctor and they said it's an $80 office visit, well, that's what it's going to cost. And you'd find a way to pay for it occasionally, you know? If you go there and get a cancer diagnosis, then yeah, and it's not a pre-existing condition, okay, fine. I mean, people with insurance, oh, pre-existing conditions should be covered. How would that work with your insurance company? If you got that little BMW in front of me, and up there he gets T-boned and totals the car, and he doesn't have insurance. So Monday morning he calls the State Farm office and says, hey, I'd like to take out a policy on my 330i GT. Okay, great. So we're going to charge you $150 for the first month. Here's your binder. And he goes, oh, by the way, I totaled it on Saturday. You owe me a new car. They're going to go, yeah, that's not how that works. You totaled the car before you were our client and covered by our policy. That is a pre-existing condition. How could we possibly be liable for that? How could we stay in business if we did that for everybody? People, and that's the problem where people conflate health insurance with health care. Yes, the two can go hand in hand more often than not. But thinking that you just have a right for someone else to pay for all your shit no matter what, it's not sustainable. I get why people want it, and I know they've been told that they are owed it and entitled to it, but is that really how it should work? I wouldn't mind insurance companies backing off, lowering my premiums, and just covering anything over a $5,000 expense or whatever, big ticket items. And if I have the sniffles, I go to the doctor. But they're not going to be able to charge what they're charging now. The doctors are going to have to charge less, because if I go in and it's not a copay, and he hands me a bill and he's seen me for 9 minutes and types something in on a computer for a prescription, it gives me a bill for $390, I'm going to laugh in his fucking face and go find a cheaper doctor. And that's what other people will do. And so doctors would have to get competitive for that stuff, because the average person's going to go, nah, I'm not doing it. I'm not paying that. Right now, we're insulated and kept separate from the payment, so there's no checks and balances. If I come in here and say I want a new ZX-10 and he goes, it's $30,000, I'm going to laugh in his face and go to Gainesville Motorsports, and they're going to sell it to me for $17,000. There's no pressure on a doctor to do that. Anyway, we're going to talk a little bit more later. Are we recording? Yeah, I reckon we are. So anyway, what was I saying before? Talking about how apparently liberals don't care about gun control anymore. And it's okay to kill CEOs as long as they're white and you don't like them. Good. And apparently, I guess what we'll add to that is that, you know, the liberals are the ones always bitching about the rich not paying their fair share. And, you know, Biden also pardoned his son for $1.4 million in 9 felony counts of tax evasion. And so for all the people like, oh, Trump's a felon, Trump's a felon, most of those were bullshit charges that he was charged with solely because he was Trump. That's not the case with Biden. People that are millions behind on their taxes and, you know, other stuff, gun charges, those people get charged. People like that do go to jail. So I don't know why people think like, oh, Biden was just being picked on. No, he wasn't. He broke the law. And when your dad's the guy that's crowing about, oh, we need more gun control and keeping guns out of the wrong hands and all this stuff, and your kid is frickin' one of them, and when you're talking about, when you're Biden, you're talking about the rich got to pay their fair share, and your kid is one of the people not paying his fair share, to me, that's kind of a big deal. So I don't want to hear Democrats talking about gun control. I don't want to hear them talking about the rich paying their fair share, because they've said it's okay. They pardoned the president's son after he repeatedly made a promise not to, that he would trust the justice system, which, by the way, works for him. Merrick Garland is a Biden appointee. He's a friend of Biden's. Biden, is the executive branch, is the highest law official in the land, and the AG works for him. And he promised that he would not use his position to circumvent the law to help out his kid. That if his kid broke the law, he would trust in the justice system, and, you know, it is what it is. Yeah, that's not true. So if Trump goes and pardons January 6th, folks, and even wants to pardon himself, I don't give a shit. The Democrats are always hypocrites because they open the door for things, and then when the other side does it, they cry foul. Now, the eagle-eyed among you might have noticed something here. I started this ride on one bike, and now I'm on a different bike. Oops, I did it again. I'm now the owner of a brand new ZX-10R ABS model. I love Ducati, nothing wrong with it. Amazing bike, very cool. I kind of missed having a full fairing, and I was kind of at a point where I was like, you know, I'm thinking about maintenance. You know, I've been wanting to do exhaust and tuning, but if you want to do it in a way that keeps the warranty intact, you got to have the dealer do it through Ducati, and it's $2,500 to $4,000 for exhaust and tuning. With the Ducati, every year, regardless of the mileage and whether you're doing your own stuff or not, oil changes, which I do them more often than Ducati asks for, because I'm very OCD about making sure that's done properly. It's cheap insurance. Motor oil is the lifeblood of that motor. Change it early and often is my motto. But it still has a maintenance minder that comes on once a year. Regardless of how many miles, it's just once a year. You have to take it to Ducati and pay them to do a service. And they won't just, at least my dealer here, won't just hey, let me give you half an hour and for you to push a button on a laptop, just check the box so the maintenance minder and all the shit goes away. Nope, you want to keep the warranty intact, they have to do the service. That's $600. When you get to 15,000 miles and you do the valves, that is a $2,000 service every 15,000 miles. So you add all that up and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to pay that. And I want to be able to mod the bike and do things without killing the warranty, and I don't want to spend $3,000 or $4,000 on a slip-on exhaust and tune. I can throw a $500 slip-on on this and give it to Chris Moore, and he can flash the ECU, and I'm going to pick up 25 horsepower at Redline. This thing will be over like 190. It's insane how fast this bike is. So I went in and I told them, my guy Niles, by the way, Mountain Motorsports, I know sometimes they've had like a reputation in the past. I have had nothing but good experiences with Mountain Motorsports. I've dealt with Roswell and I've dealt with Mall of Georgia. God, this thing wants to turn in easy. This thing just wants to fall into turns. So much nicer than the Ducati did. We'll see how the comfort is, but so far it's actually feeling pretty good. I got my braking there. Let's see. I got my throttle input. I can see my throttle input. Let's see. I want to see my lean angle. No, that's... I need to go up. Power. How do I change? K-trick, power. Braking. I still got to figure this fucking thing out. This thing is an absolute animal. Fairly comfortable. I may not have to put Healy bars on this. The angle on this is actually nicer than the ZX6R. I was looking at the 2025 ZX6R because it's got a new TFT dash like this. This thing's connected to my phone through Bluetooth. So if I get calls coming in and, you know, all kinds of shit like that, I can set my ride apps, log, data log. I can log my route and put a map in there. My GPS coordinates can be coming through here. It's all pretty cool. And I can see all my bike metrics and what it's due for service and make changes right from my phone. So that's actually pretty damn cool. So, yeah. We want to get out, get out. The foot position's good. My feet are up high out of the way, but my way my knees nestle into the tank. Really, really nice. So my legs aren't cramped. Now, this is not going to be as comfortable as the Ducati. And at some point, I may want to actually go and get... Oh, I can change the color back and forth. That's pretty cool. Let's leave it on that. So I got throttle input. I can do braking, so I can see my brake pressure. Now, it will say the Yamaha, you can show brake and throttle. That's okay. So, total time, battery, I guess will show voltage, temperature. That's good. The clock is automatically set from my phone. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I've still got to figure out like how to get into different modes and things like that. Because it shows, you can have it show lane angle. Like right now when you're in rider mode, let me just see something. If I go down to power, that's rider mode 2. Let's go up. Rain. Yeah, there I can see lane angle. Fuck. I'm in road mode, damn it. Of course, the light would change right then. Get the fuck out the way. I don't know if I can change as I'm going down the road. We're gonna find out in a minute. Need to adjust the lever, shift lever. Let's see. Can I change it to... Okay, I can. So there's rain. Let's get back into rider 1. Then my lean angle goes away. So maybe I'll ride around in sport so I can see my lean angle. Tell me how much my lean angle sucks. Yeah, so I'm going to move my shift lever down just a tad. We're just going over to cycle gear. Love the C8. Got one of those. Yeah, like anything, I got to learn the bike a little bit. But I'll tell you, suspension on the front's a little stiff. I'm going to take out a little bit of compression and rebound. It feels just a little bit hoppy. Now, it might loosen up a little bit, but... We're trying to get some miles on the bike today just to get the brakes bedded in. I do an abbreviated braking on these things. I'm gonna ride it medium. I'm gonna keep the RPMs not below 6, but I'm gonna, I'm just gonna play with it a little bit until we get to like 100 miles. So I'm gonna try to get on today or tomorrow, between today and tomorrow. At that point, change oil and filter, and we're going to Pound Town. We're gonna rip on this thing. So yeah, I keep the high beams on. Got to scrub the tires in a little bit. Oh, that is a silky smooth engine. There we go. High beams on. Cool. Got really good suspension. So this has got, I believe it's got Brembos. I don't know if they're M432s or M50s. They're not Stylemas, but they're Brembos. They don't have braided lines. That will probably be one upgrade I will do, but they seem pretty good. The bite seems pretty good. I still got to kind of bed them in and scrub the rotors in just a little bit. Getting kind of gunk from the manufacturing and shipping process when they PDI it. If they polish it, get any stuff, you got to burn that stuff off. So I'll wait till I get on the back road and get up some speed and do some progressively harder brakes just to bed everything in nice. It's got the balance-free fork. So it's got the Showa. You can see down, well, maybe not from the angle, I don't know where the camera's aiming exactly, but down there's got these external cartridges. So it's got balance-free forks, the Showa, and it's got a balance-free remote reservoir or whatever on the shock. So really nice suspension. Like excellent suspension. You could say, well, Öhlins is better. It depends. If you're buying Öhlins race grade from Öhlins, it's one thing. If you're buying a bike that comes with Öhlins, this stuff is as good as that, I think. The stuff you get that's OEM Öhlins is not their top shelf stuff. It's very good, but I would say the Showa balance-free forks and stuff are on par easily. Really nice stuff. Suspension feels nice and stiff, but not abusive. And Kent can get that dialed in, get the preload set and all that stuff. Seat's a little hard, that'll soften up, and I believe I can get a comfort seat for this. Quick shifter is okay. Obviously we haven't broken it in and we're not ripping on it yet. And the gearbox will need to, kind of smooth out a little bit. Mirrors look good, they fold in, they got a nice detent too. So when you go to the track, you just pull them in and they go click and they just lock in place. Nice. Got the blinkers. Where are the blinkers on these things? I think they're built into that. Are they down the sides like the 6? Are they up top? Yeah, they're up here. So we got an Öhlins electronically controlled steering damper, which the 6 did not have. The 6 also had the single function big piston fork. So this is a massive step up. It's also $6,000 more, so you're going to get way more power. The electronics on this has full IMU, launch control, lean angle, rear lift mitigation, like, I mean, all the shit you'd want on a modern super bike. And that's what this is. This is a super bike. You put a pipe on here and an air filter and an ECU flash. That's it. And you're making 190 plus at the wheel. You're putting down ZX14 horsepower on a bike that weighs 100 and some odd pounds less. So this thing should be awesome on the track, because you got all the nimble handling of the super bike, which, you know, I made the ZX14 work, but it was not an easy ride on track. And yeah, it was massively fast on the back straight, but this should be just about as fast. But the brakes are going to be better, the suspension's better, and it's so much lighter. So I'll get up to about the same speed, but I won't have to brake nearly as early, which will be nice, because that's where I would lose time on the 14. I had to bring all that weight, haul it down before turn 10A. And when you're going a $170 plus on the speedometer, that extra 110, 120 pounds, think of a 120-pound dumbbell going 170 miles an hour. Think of the devastating amount of energy that has. It's like a cannonball shot out of a cannon. All that extra weight on top of, you know, take your 1000, take this, and add that much energy. And that's how much those two little rotors and that little calipers down there and that lever right there has to slow down. So this should be faster. It's going to handle better. The braking's really nice. Very smooth. So far it's comfortable. You know, I got to ride it all day, right? I got to put some miles in to give a longer, you know, really put it through its paces to figure out, you know, what needs improving. But so far the suspension is taut but compliant. I've not done anything to it. Brakes feel good. It is a cable actuated clutch, which I prefer. It gives me a little more feel than the hydraulic clutch of the Ducati. That clutch wasn't bad, but I definitely prefer cable. It's simpler. It's just a more direct feeling because there's a physical cable between here and the clutch, and you can kind of feel what it's doing. You don't get that same feeling when it's pushing hydraulic pressure through a hose. You know, does it work? Yeah, it works, and it works well. I just find that when you're launching, it just, I don't know, it feels like you can finesse it a little better. It doesn't look as cool, you know, you got to adjust the cable after a while, it stretches, but whatever. You don't have to bleed it like you have to do a wet clutch periodically. Yeah, so today, I think this thing came with a tank protector installed. I got to double check. It feels like there's one down there where my thumb is, so it looks like it's got a tank protector. So all I got to really do is get whatchamacallit, get a, gotta figure out where to mount. Ooh, I got a nice flat area. I can mount my camera right there. Get a camera mount. Sweet, that's gonna work awesome. Then I'll get the dash, I'll get the telemetry, all the stuff on track. Expect a lot of content to come. I'm going to try to get up to GMD CompuTrack. I'm on PTO for the rest of the year. I don't have to go back to work until January 2nd. I got a few things I got to do. I told some people I'd help out, but basically I'm off. So if there's a day that looks decent, I can get on Kent's calendar. Best $80 you can spend on a new bike. Go get your goddamn suspension set up for your weight and your riding style. When the bike feels planted and it's not weaving or bobbing around, you feel what's going on in the front, and you feel like the front is stuck to the tarmac because it's just planted and compliant. It gives you confidence. It makes the bike handle better, but it lets you'll feel more comfortable pushing it harder. So that is the first mod you should always do on a bike, is go to and your dealers typically don't know what they're doing with that. You know, they can fix a motor and stuff like that, but most dealers don't have, you know, if you got a guy there that's like a racer and does suspension setups, maybe. All right, these are not canceling, self-canceling like the Ducati. But you got LED lights, you got quick shift, auto blip, IMU, you got everything. This thing is loaded with features, so very, very cool. So we're gonna go park and get some little bobbins so I can put this up on a rear stand. When I get home, clean the chain, get all the gunk and shit off of it, and detail the bike. And maybe I'll have a few little riding videos. I can't rip on it yet. I got to get some more miles on it, so let's put our mileage on there. Total time, battery. Where's the goddamn... I don't know what it is. And anyway, I'm going to turn this off and figure this out. I'll be back later. Alright, we are back. Cycle Gear, of course, had nothing. They're out of stock and everything but clothes. All the parts. I was very disappointed. Shame on you, Cycle Gear. So I could not get swing arm spools. I'm going to go home and clean the wheels and chain and all that fun stuff. I can reverse my pit bull stand to do it without, but it's a little more secure with them. So I got about 20-something miles on the bike. What do I think? Well, it's much more roomy than the R1. I'll say that. It's more of a stretch to the bars. My legs aren't hunched up as much. Despite it having good ground clearance, the seat's a little hard. That'll need to break in. I might invest in a comfort seat. The electronics, they're good as far as their function and how they work, but navigating and all that stuff, not as good as the Yamaha or the Ducati for that matter. I think their UI, like when I'm in rider mode, then I can't get my lean angle and some other stuff. It kind of like takes over part of the display, and it's a little fiddly to kind of get it the way you want. I need to read the manual and see what the sport settings are, because if the sport setting is basically what I put my rider, as long as it's full power and traction control 1 or 2, that I may just put it in sport and leave it there, and that will open up, you know, stuff, some of the display, because right now it's saying power and traction control. And I don't need to know that. I know what it is because I know what mode I'm in. I could change the bottom with a battery and stuff, but I can't even like get to the odometer, so it's kind of annoying. So the dash, it looks pretty, and it does all the things you want. I can see my braking forces and throttle and how much, but I can't see them at the same time, which is another benefit of the Yamaha. And with the Yamaha, the R1, it also measured suspension travel. So when the front was diving, I could see how the bike was pitching front and back, and which front or back was being compressed, and by how much, you know, as a percentage. That's all some pretty cool stuff. So I would say that, you know, as far as how the quick shifter feels so far, everything else I'm not getting on it, so I'm assuming ABS and traction, the IMU, all that's going to be pretty smooth and transparent. But as far as the experience of the dashboard and navigating the settings and what kinds of information you get, the Yamaha is definitely a step up. With the R1 at least. The handling, this feels like a 600, although it's more roomy, I'll give it that. The reach to the bar is definitely a little longer. But it feels good. Overall, you know, I'm digging it. I don't know that I'm going to need to do the Healy bars on this. I will probably do a taller windscreen, like a double bubble. That'll look a little cooler and give me just a little bit more wind protection. As far as it, you know, I'm not leaning a lot. It's a cold day. It's a new bike. New tires, breaking it in. So I am not going to be pushing this in any way today. But it feels really good. These tires and the way that it's tracking feel better than the Ducati. When I would go, this pavement, you can't see it on the camera, I'm moving too quick, but there's like grooves in the concrete, and that would make my front tire do this on the Ducati. You'd feel it kind of pulling you around. And so when you leaned over, it just felt squirrely. You had traction, it's just it made the bike move around a good bit. That was way more stable. In fact, I forgot about it because I didn't feel it. Normally I'm in the turns, and even though I'm not going fast, I just don't like it on that grooved pavement. This just was like, whatever. I didn't really notice it. The engine's very smooth. I will say the R1 has more torque in mid-range. I'm in full power mode. This is not intimidating at all. So I'm at 6,000. When I whack the throttle, it honestly feels like a Gixxer 750. Now, I know that when I get up there, it's going to be like, holy shit. The way this motor is, the R1 has meaty torque everywhere. This, even though it's a 1000 and it makes the same peak horsepower as the Yamaha, this horsepower is, it's a high, the thing redlines up at 14 or something. It's going to be a much higher, it's going to have the horsepower stacked up top. So in the mid-range, it's very smooth, it's very linear, it's not intimidating, it's 6,000 RPMs. When you hit it on an R1, it's like, boom, it hits you. Here it's, and it goes. So it comes on a little bit smoother. Some people like the more grunty feeling of the R1. I certainly enjoyed it, but I would say for a bike that I know makes horrifying power up top, as this thing does, it's not intimidating. It's not scary. It's not jumpy. I can feel the fuel cut thing, and I'm going to get this tuned. The stock exhaust is pretty goddamn good. The muffler, all the exhaust muffling is happening underneath the bike in that box. There's no real point in putting a slip on this bike. I looked down it with a flashlight. It's a straight through baffle. There's no obstructions. Now the can's bigger and kind of goofy and stuff, but I'm thinking about keeping this stealth, not making it too loud and shouty and advertising what it is. It's all kind of blacked out. If you look close, you'll see, oh, there's a black on black ZX6R or ZX10R sticker. I think I'm going to keep the exhaust stock and just have more Mafia do the ECU flash. And it'll still pick up 20 horsepower and uncork the top and get rid of the fuel cut eliminator and let him do his tweaks. But it'll still be completely stock. When I go to the dealer, it's going to look stock. It's going to seem stock. Shouldn't have a problem with warranty claims. But I'll get most of the performance. If you do a full exhaust, yes, you can pick up in conjunction with an airbox and then you tune. I could pick up even more power. I'm honestly at a point in my life where this thing's going to have so much. I just kind of want to know, like, hey, you richened it up a little bit. You got rid of this herky-jerky down low with the fuel cut eliminator at small throttle openings. Just smooth it out and get rid of the electronic governor up top. That's really what I want Chris to do. And that'll cost me $350. And I'll have a bike that'll be, I don't know, 185 horsepower at the wheel. It'll make as much as the R1 did with the exhaust and air filter. It'll make that kind of power, but it's going to look and sound stock. I like that. I think it'll fly under the radar just a little bit more, and it's just less money to spend. I don't think I'm going to need Healy bars. I think I'll be able to work with this. But if I did, those are fairly inexpensive, and it takes 45 minutes to install them. It's already got a steering damper, and a good one, by the way. Got a nice Öhlins, and it's electronically controlled by this ECU, so it's speed sensitive. So in a parking lot, it's not stiff. The faster you go and the more aggressive you're riding, the more it stiffens up. So that's cool. The suspension is great. I'm going to get that dialed in the next week or two if I can get a warm enough day to get up to GMD. Honestly, there's not much more to do to a bike like this. I mean, tail tidy, frame slide, like little shit. I don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to do basic exhaust or tuning. I think just an ECU flash. The way these things run is they make stock, they tend to make up around 170s at the wheel, which is silly power. That's with it restricted. And then it drops off pretty quick before redline as it starts closing the throttle bodies. Even though you got the throttle pinned to 100%, it shuts them down to 30% and kills the top end power for noise and emissions and stuff. Chris will open that up like I do on the Triumphs if you watch my Tune ECU videos, to where you get on the gas and you give it wide open throttle, it'll hold those plates open right to redline. And so peak power, I may pick up 5 or 10 or, you know, something. I'll get up in the 180s from the 170s. But out towards redline, it's like a 60 horsepower difference, because normally you would have had to shift because the power takes a nosedive. But because it's going to keep pulling, overall you may have only picked up 8 to 10 horsepower with a completely stock bike. But at the highest RPMs, the old bike will have fallen off a cliff and the old one will keep revving. So for that last 1,000 RPMs or so, we're talking, I think, a 60, it might even be as much as a 70 horsepower difference. It is massive up top. So I think that's all I'm going to do. The stock exhaust sounds kind of good, and unless you want to go to the expense of doing, because changing the slip-on doesn't do anything. Just, it's a little lighter and looks a little nicer because it's smaller, but I don't know. I think if I did exhaust, I would have to do the whole exhaust, do a full exhaust, and it's much more money and more involved. And I'm going to just take it up to him saying, here, just flash a stupid ECU and call it a day. Spend the rest on frame sliders and a double bubble windscreen, and I'm going to have a bike that may not be as loud and shouty as the R1, but it's going to be the same speed or faster than the R1 was. It's not a bad sounding exhaust. I can't really get on it because I've only got maybe 30 miles on it now, but under load, I have a feeling once you get up 10, 12, 13, 14,000 RPMs, this thing's going to sound pretty damn badass for what it is. And I don't think a slip-on's going to make any bit of difference. What I will look at and see is the slip-on mounts to the bread box underneath, and it comes out the side above the exhaust valve. Do they sell an exhaust tip? I mean, what would it sound like if you just took the muffler off and put a nice tip that looked nice? But if the muffler isn't really muffling much, all the muffling's being done by the box, it might not sound that bad. It's free to find out. I can just pull the muffler off with 3 bolts, see how it sounds. Yeah, if that does work, then yeah. If not, keep it looking stock and just completely unrestrict it and unleash the beasts. And people think, it's stock, it's fast, but it isn't as fast as it could be. And it's like, no, you'd be wrong. Yeah, smoothing out the throttle application and getting rid of the top end restriction would be good. So apparently this thing has sort of built-in winglets and there's air channels or something, I don't know. But it's got all LED lighting. The dash is small but nice. Not as easy to use as it does give as much info. But then again, the Yamaha doesn't have the Bluetooth interface where I can go in and pull information on the bike. And apparently, if Kawasaki, if there's a tune file, it said something about pushing tunes to the bike through the Rideology app. I don't know what tunes are out there and what you get it, but maybe if you buy the damn Akrapovich slip-on from them, maybe they've got a factory tweaked map you can put in there that might uncork some of that stuff. I don't know. I'll have to look into that when I get home. I didn't really anticipate doing this today. Like, I thought about it and I was like, well, I'll go in and see if I can make the numbers work. And I got 15,800 trade-in on the Ducati, and they did that. I did pay full MSRP for the bike, but they gave me all the discounts by basically pumping up my trade-in value, because then I get the sales tax incentive. And I'm not paying 8% sales tax on an $18,000 bike. I only paid a couple $100. It wiped out almost all the sales tax. And it cut in, so I didn't owe much on the Ducati, so I had over $9,000 to basically put down on this thing. So we made it work, got a good interest rate, and I'm just going to pay it off early anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I got to say, this thing has been, so far, really nice. I'm surprised at how smooth it is. I'm surprised at how docile it is, even in full power mode, down low. That's a good thing. That means when you're up in the mountains on the twisties and you don't want to carry massive RPMs where you've got just insane power and you're really having to be careful, or really having to lean into the electronics to kind of save you, you can keep the RPMs down in the 5 to 8 range and still have good pull coming off the turns, and then the straightaway you wind it on. But it'll let you be nice and smooth because it's not a jumpy, aggressive, boom kind of throttle. But then when you do have room to stretch its legs and you get it up 910 to 13,000, 14,000, it's going to be holy shit warp drive. But it's nice to have that buffer zone. It's really good having mid-range punch. And you don't want it to be anemic down low and have all the power up top. But when you're talking these kinds of numbers, it makes it a little easier to manage all that power. When you're on the side of the tire and you just have explosive power, you have to really, you got to make sure your electronics are on, and you got to really trust them. Or you can get in trouble real fast. I mean, leader bikes are missiles. These things are absolutely animals. But knowing that as long as you're down here, it's fairly tame, it's fairly docile. It feels just like a really nicely tuned and set up 750. And if you want to get to holy shit that's fast, just get the RPMs up. I like that. Telling me I got an email. Of course, I can't read it from there, so I don't know what good that does me. I still got to look at more into the app and stuff. But I mean, it's a very well-built bike. It's very nice. Got to go around and take off the stickers and shit. I'm going to see if my vinyl guy can do some stuff. Get some green on this bike. I got all this matte black and then shiny black. It would be really cool for him to just cut out everything that's shiny black and get the Kawasaki green and just have this black and green, like all black with that Kawasaki green kind of ripping through. I think that'll look kind of cool. I really wanted the KRT edition, but I don't want a bike this fast with this much power and having no ABS. Oh, a lot of people, oh, you don't need it. Shut up. I'm so glad 44 Teeth just did a video of this shit. Because everyone, you know, oh, you don't need the nannies, you don't need traction, use your wrist, learn to ride, all this other stuff. Okay. Well, those guys race. They're good riders. They're better than most of the people that are saying you don't need that shit. And they went out, it was Portimao or one of the big tracks out in Europe on Panigale V4S's, the new 2025 model. And they went out and did a press event and track day in heavy rain. And they're like, they wanted to show, does traction control slow you down or does traction control make you faster? And they proved traction control made them like 5 seconds a lap faster. And these are guys that know what they're doing. They're older guys, they're probably in their 40s, late 40s, they've been racing a long time. They do all the bike reviews and stuff. And they were like, absolutely. They're like, once you learn to trust the electronics, they're like, the amount of engineering and science and stuff that goes in and all the race data, everything, Ducati really know, and these other companies too, really know what they're doing. They've got MotoGP, they got World Superbike, and slide control, and all these other things so that you can lean into the electronics and really make the most of what the bike has, because most bikes are beyond most riders. If you're not a pro racer, this bike will fuck you up. And guys say, oh, I get that, I'll turn it off, I don't need it. You're not a fast rider. That's why you get away with it. Going fast on the interstate, that doesn't mean you're a fast rider. You go on Road Atlanta and you run a 134, yeah, you're a fast rider. But you're not doing that with no electronics. The guy who's talking shit about electronics is not doing that. He's running a 154 or a 2-minute flat. He's half a minute off the pace. And so the guys that are highway heroes and stunters and, oh, I can do that, yeah, those are skills, stunning skills. It's a completely different skill set than actually going fast. I was just about to kiss the power band and I was like, ooh, stuff's starting to happen. So they went out there and he's like, you know, the back end was sliding around. It can get scary really fast. He's like, but I was, and they has a telemetry box built into all the bikes, and the laptops, the guys, the engineers are pulling all the data, and they're like, we can see exactly what the bike's doing and what lean angle and how fast were you hitting the corner and how many seconds were you either on the brakes or on the gas, and you always want to be doing one or the other, so the lower that number is, the better. And they showed science that they were demonstrably faster with those systems. You know, and that's the thing, in the real world, you got gravel, people pulling in front of you, there's oil, or some guy's puking coolant or transmission fluid. There's all kinds of shit. Gets on your tires. I had an oil filter blowing the mountains, and we were running like a track day pace up War Woman Road, and I just felt the bike moving and I keep seeing lights flash. I'm like, what the fuck is, I don't know. And then my wife comes in on the intercom, dude, you're on fire, there's smoke all behind you, you got oil, your whole tire is dripping wet, soaked with oil. And I'm up in the twisties at double the speed limit, stayed upright. Why? Because the goddamn electronics kept cutting in and making sure that I didn't lose the back end and high side myself. I wouldn't have done that if all of a sudden my tire's coated with oil and I don't know that because it's underneath and behind me, and I get on the gas coming out of a turn. I am toast. Electronics are like, I got you, buddy. Don't worry. Daddy's got you. If you think you don't need electronics, it's probably because you're just not that fast. And I'm not saying I'm super fast, but I'm a believer in this shit. And when I see guys that are amateur, almost, you know, low-level pro racers, and they're like, dude, this shit's for real. It's legit, and it fucking works. Who am I to say, no, I'm better than that? All your MotoGP guys use all that shit. I'm going to go, no, no, no. I'm better than that. No, I'm not. The speeds this bike is capable of are frightening. You need the electronics to keep you out of trouble. And they do. Anyway, that may be all I have for this video. I'm going to go grab something to eat. And I'm going to go put some more miles. If anything interesting comes along, I'll jump back on. But if not, have a good one. All right, everybody. If I can find a straightaway with no cops, we're going to do our first little rip on this thing. I don't do a long break-in. There's no need for it. Get some heat cycles through it, rev it up and down the rev range for 100 miles, and then get her done. But I do want to see what the top end power of this thing is. So I've got it in rider mode. So I've got wheelie control on, traction control on 2 of 3. It's in the middle. I'll read up and see what the best setting is. In full power, ABS is on. Quick shifter's on, launch control's on. If I can get a place where I can see a little bit. I don't want to go stupid fast, I just want to see what the power's like. Oh, it's got some power. Just roll it on, and all of a sudden you're a $110 in second. Hadn't even hit the rev limiter. I felt the front lift starting to lift in second, and I felt it just put it back very gently. Barely felt it, didn't make the front end wobble. That was nice. You can obviously get it to wheelie, but I think with traction control on 2 and wheelie control on or whatever, it's definitely helping keep it in line. I kind of want to drop it to first. Alright, let's see what it does together. Yeah, still didn't get up above 12, I don't think, but wow, it's got some good power. It's so different than the delivery of the Ducati and different than the delivery of the R1, though. The R1's just like a torque monster. It's a sledgehammer. The MT10, same way, that mid-range boom. This is more like a 600, but so much more. But it's that same, it smoothly ramps up into it. It doesn't just hammer you, it just starts shoving you harder and harder, if that makes sense. It's very nice, it's very linear. Feels really good. I don't know why I short shifted. There's always cops on this road, so I'm always just trying to be mindful. I don't want to be getting a super speeder ticket as I'm trying to break this thing in. But wow, does it have power up there? And I like that. Some people, I've read some people have said, you know, hey, that doesn't have as much mid-range. It's kind of lackluster down below. But I'm like, I don't mind having the power up top. It's got this really cool... It's not intimidating despite being holy shit fast. Thought about going that way after the Porsche, but there's some slope. He's going super slow. I think get this thing broken in and tuned and stuff. It's going to be just an absolute gem. It's just so smooth and whoosh. So in some ways I can see what people are saying, that maybe you know, the R1 feels more alive, the V4 Panigale and the Tuono, they got so much more character. Absolutely. V4s and the Yamaha CP4 are absolutely brilliant motors with so much character. The only Japanese motor with any goddamn character is the R1. That cross-plane CP4 sounds like a V4. It has this monster mid-range, just punch you in the face kind of torque. It's just awesome. This is like your CVRs and your Gixxers. Very capable. I won't say it's boring, because it's certainly fast and smooth and like, oh shit. And as soon as we get it flashed, it's going to pick up a bunch of power, even with a stock pipe. Like significant power. These are the most restricted of the leader bikes because of damn emissions and sound and all that other shit. So as soon as you get rid of those ride-by-wire restrictions, this thing is going to be absolutely stupid fast up top, but it's still going to be very linear. It's not going to have a lot of character, though. So I will miss that. The Ducati had character. R1 MT10's got character, a lot of character. There's definitely more character, more interesting bikes. But this thing is going to be just supremely smooth and capable, and it's going to be just insanely fast when we uncork it. And it's not to say it's not fast now. It's making low to mid 170s at the wheel stock, which is a crazy amount of power. Little R6. But, yeah, I don't know what the red line is, like 14,000 on this or something like that. It revs up pretty high, not as high as a Panigale V4. But, yeah, for now, I just gotta get it home, wipe it down, clean it, mount my, camera mount. Got a nice flat surface here, and I've got a big adhesive mount. I can just go stick there, but I gotta take all the stickers and shit off. I'm not gonna lie, this is an amazing sounding stock exhaust. I don't know if the microphone's picking it up, but it really is throaty. It's got a little bit of deep rasp to it for a stock exhaust. That's why I think I'm just gonna keep it stock. People will look at it and they'll go, yeah, it's a ZX-10, obviously it's gonna be fast. But I think I want to keep it almost like a little bit of a sleeper. Like, why advertise, oh, it's all tuned and souped up? Why let the police know? Why let anybody else know? Let people just look at it and go, oh, whatever, it's an engine, it's fast. And have it be just an absolute unhinged lunatic when you hit the throttle, but without all the billboarding and advertising and the shouting, hey, look at me, look at me. I want to have, I guess, the extra performance and smoothness. Here's one thing I don't like about it, but an ECU flash will fix it, is the fuel cut. Holy shit. It is annoying. If you roll off the throttle, it's like, and as soon as so you go to like 1% throttle to 0 when you're just cruising along. If you hit a bump and your hand moves a little bit so it goes off throttle, it shuts off the fuel injectors, and immediately the engine braking goes and you lurch forward. And if you touch the throttle at all, the engine fires back up and comes alive and it so it gives you this kind of lumpy. And it's not Kawasaki's fault. It's all the shit that the Euro 6 and EPA puts on them to try to conserve as much fuel and reduce emission. And I get all that. You got environmental concerns and stuff. But it does wreak havoc on the bike, and it does impact rideability. And that's the biggest benefit of the ECU Flash, is that I don't think I'm going to need the fueling adjusted much on a stock bike. I'm sure the fueling's fine. Chris can tell me otherwise. But there's the fuel cut. There's the fuel cut. There's the ride-by-wire restrictions that absolutely strangle this thing up top. You get up past 13, and it just goes, whoa, and the power just drops from 172 down to like 90. And he can undo that with a couple clicks of a mouse. And instead of it dropping to 90, it'll go up a little bit. So the peak power what you had before might have only been 175 and maybe only go up to 183, 185 or something. But at the drop-off point, it's like a 70 horsepower difference. It's tremendous. And it lets you rev that much longer, which adds to your top speed, which they get rid of the limiter as well, and get rid of the fuel cuts. You get all that shit for like 350 bucks. It'll just run way smoother and stronger. And otherwise, look and sound stock. Not have to spend money on exhaust and tear stuff out and scratch it in the pro. You know, none of that crap. So I'm going to stop in and talk to Johnny and see what he's up to. And we'll talk to y'all later.